And I think as much as connections, we will talk about emotions, because emotions, I think, are our core to our existence.
It's almost as if you're comparing the intensity of problems that each of us have, and then we're like, oh my god, yours is smaller than mine, so please don't complain. Like, it's not necessary.
I've really worked hard on trying to wake up and look at the world as you do, right? I'm not trying to be you, but when I kind of live around you, I kind of see you wake up with like, and it just, positive people piss me off. You hold on to it, say, see, my story is validated. People are going to be mean to someone who can't see or whatever, right? Because my story told me that's what's going to happen. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today, my co-host Nivi and I are going to be talking about outlook, perspective, and how when we come to meet a person, whether it's someone we spend a lot of time with, whether it's a new acquaintance, a relationship, a bond, a connection we forge. And
so we're going to be talking about who we are as a couple, who we are individually, and kind of where we come from, to give some context to this podcast and also to the future episodes that we do. We feel like a lot of people relate to these two obvious ways, obvious upbringing that we've identified for each of our upbringings. So we feel like a lot of people will relate to these ways that we've been brought up. And we're just going to have fun with these conversations, kind of show you a little bit more about ourselves and who we are and what kind of experiences we have, and hope to kind of, like we've said earlier, extend this conversation in the comments and elsewhere as well.
And I think a lot of these issues, contrary to the way people approach it sometimes, including me in the past, is that it's not closed, right? Like maybe say something like self-worth or insecurity, or even how you deal with situations in a relationship. It's not like, oh, I conquered anger, let's move on. These things keep resurfacing. So I think talking about it in different contexts, okay, why did I get angry, or who did I get angry with, or how I responded to that? Because the way I responded to a situation in 2017, where it would just be anger or pent up anger, in 2024, it's not like I'm calm and in a place of zen and I'm like, nothing pisses me off. But the response changes with whether age or the way I process it. So these things are ongoing, and we look at life in such a finite set of things going, I conquered fear, I conquered anger. I don't think that works for me. But I think the way these are things that keep coming up in life, and I think life is a journey of understanding how we respond and react and cope with, and also befriend certain emotions. And I think as much as connections, we will talk about emotions, because emotions, I think, are our core to our existence.
And I think it's about kind of acknowledging, when you are reacting a certain way or you're using a certain tone, and then catching yourself before that, because it's part of you,
being aware.
I
think acknowledging is another word, but being aware is just so undermined, because we might say, yeah, okay, but why, what's the point of being aware? But if you're not aware, you're not able to kind of understand what you did, and then you just do it again and again. But being aware just takes away a little bit from the last time you did that thing. How a lot of the background and the stuff we carry along in life affects the way we look at people, look at situations which involve obviously people, and how we respond and react to it. So I hope you enjoy listening to us talk about what we share as a couple, what we came into this relationship with, how we sort of became friends, how we did long distance, how we eventually got married, and how we've tried to stay married.
and how we have a child.
And how we have a child who's a new being who we can really kind of, if we don't do it in a
really mess up her life
in an awareful way. Yeah, exactly. Don't mess up her life, because it's so easy to kind of project what we've been through onto her, and trying not to do that and trying to let her kind of just discover who she is very difficult, and kind it's a tricky slope that we can easily slip down. So the thing in this episode, which I think is important for us to establish is recently a very dear friend, also we call a therapist, Dia, shout out to Dia, who we've been going to for many years, said something which kind of put a lot of things that we've been through in perspective. She said that, you know, what's strange about Nivi, you and Sundeep, is that you come from such different worlds, right? Even though from the outside it looks, you know, very similar, that we have very good upbringings, we've had access to a lot of great things, whether it's travel, education, access to places where we can socialize, also the kind of friends we have, the kind of things that we've experienced.
And
But
geographically, a
yeah,
kilometer away from
it
each
doesn't
other.
get more
Yeah.
similar, right? But the worlds we come from, as she pointed out, is Nivi comes from a place of My Little Ponies, right? Everything is beautiful and everyone is lovely. Everyone's out to do good and everyone's just a perfect person who I'd love to see the sunlight in, right?
And Sundeep is the one that comes to attack you. Even if you've said that glass of water is full, he'll come with like this knife ready to stab you. And it's
Wow.
taken us.
It's a world of Mortal Kombat, as she put it.
And it's
And-
taken us, how many years we've been dating? Oh, I mean, not
you-
dating. How many years have we been together?
I don't know,
Whatever. How many years? For almost 14 years. And it's taken us this long to realize. I think once she put it down in these two buckets, we realized, okay, this is actually where each of us comes from, and this is how we look at the world. And so every time we have these conversations, I'm like, Mortal Kombat.
Great. Because the thing is, yeah, I don't stab people for a glass of water, just to put that out there. But it makes a lot of sense because, let me be honest, right? And this is something I've strived towards for many years now, at least 5, 6, 7 years. I know it's not many years in a life of 41 years, but I've really worked hard on trying to wake up and look at the world as you do, right? I'm not trying to be you, but when I kind of live around you, I kind of see you wake up with and it just, positive people piss me off.
Right? I don't understand though.
Because let me just give this in a very basic way that I try to explain to you, is you start the day on, say, +5 on a scale of, if we start from 0 and 0 being
not
neutral,
always, but
for the most part, right? And I used to start the day at -30 and I work towards getting to 0, right? So I wake up earlier, maybe I'll have a few drinks less the previous night, I'll wake up, do some breathing, try to do some meditation, whether it's guided, whatever it may be, and then finally I'll get to -10, right? And then you wake up by then and you're already at +5 and I'm just like, damn it. And it is a great appreciation of where you are, but punishing yourself for it doesn't do any good, right? Because that's how you are conditioned to look at the world. And this is another the reason why I find these breathing exercises also important, because it's the things you're doing for yourself, whatever the end goal may be. I think if you're able to kind of do these things, like how you brush your teeth, how you wake up and stretch and have a shower, whatever it may be, these things just help you understand where you are starting the day before other elements, like other people, whether other situations, they come into your life. Because if you're at -30 and other people bring their -30 or +25, you're just in no situation to face it, because you're just completely starting off balance.
So let's talk about some examples that we've had when we start off the day like this.
Yeah, I think for the most obvious thing on a day-to-day basis is how we look at what we have to do for the day, right? Whether it is you going to work or I have to do something. And this, again, this is 2024, going back to 2017. Could be something great as I have a gig out of town and Nivi has to do something else. It's automatically viewed differently, right? She would look at it, great, I have to go to work, I have a chance to go to the office and do things which are things I enjoy with people I enjoy doing it with. And I'm just like, screw the show, this corporate show. And it's a very basic, silly example of how you view it. But I think it's so important because it just reflects on how you look at the things given to you in life.
Yeah, and I feel like it's so easy for us to compare or have arguments of where the other person is coming from, because you just don't understand it for the most part. If, for example, he has a gig in the evening or whatever, and he's grumpy about it. And I'm like, what is there to be so grumpy about? Like, it's something that you just don't understand. So it's really amazing that we've got through so many years, thankfully, with therapy and all of that, because it's such opposite worlds that we come from, that it's very difficult to come to understand each other. I mean, in conversation it's fine, but like, you're constantly triggering each other in different ways. Because like, if he comes and says, oh, uh if I am saying something was difficult in the day, and he just kind of shits on it, and I'm like, I don't get it, because where he thinks that it's more difficult for him do something else. Like, it's almost as if you're comparing the intensity of problems that each of us have, and then we're like, oh my god, yours is smaller than mine, so please don't complain. Like, it's not necessary.
Yeah.
Like, we've
I
been through
think
so many of those.
I think that's the thing you pointed out, right? When someone around, especially people who are more prone to look at the, if you want to call it, the negative side, or get more of the cynical aspect out there, there's a tendency to bring people down to
Yeah.
your level, and
Yeah.
that's kind of a bummer for everyone around. And I used to do that, an example that you asked, and I didn't give a very strong example, but going back many years, when we used to go out, right? So Nivi's friends obviously are a lot younger than me, and we used to make plans to go out, right? Before we got married, we would obviously meet and have these group of friends, and I would always have this idea of a perceived wrong that might happen. So I would say, I don't meet these people. They're going to say this. They're going to do this. They're going to put me down. They're not going to help me if I need this thing. And all these were constructs in my head of what if. It's almost fantasy building, right? This might, if this person says this might happen. This thing, I'm going to say this. And I'm so exhausted by the time I even go for this party or this night out. And none of that would have happened. In fact, they might be nice, and I'm taken aback, going, this is not how the story played out in my head,
Yeah.
or how I thought it would play out in my head. In fact, the contrary would happen. And then I would feel guilt the next day, going, how could you think about people like this? People are actually nice, which would last for 3 seconds. Again, the story would start from scratch. Whether it's your friends, whether it's colleagues I would meet on the road for shows, or whether later on in radio, or whether it was people I meet generally in society. And this is where I think this might happen to a lot of us in day-to-day interactions, whether it's with family, whether it's with your husband or your wife or your kids or your siblings, is there is a certain version you play at home and a certain version you play outside. And the version at home keeps getting validated, if that's the word, or reconsolidated, because you keep hearing that pattern of exchange that happens, that you grew up with, especially if you live with your family. And then when you go out to the world, you either go with this kind of
Baggage.
Mortal Kombat approach, or the ponies approach. And as a result, very strange things happen. Either this example of you build up a story and it doesn't really take shape. So this resistance that you're expecting is not there. Suddenly you fall flat on your face, feeling tired, exhausted, guilty.
Yeah.
Or exactly what happens very rarely. So you're constantly, for me, Mortal Kombat's an example, but I'm constantly in the threat mode. Was a lot more, a little less now, of where I'm going to be wronged by someone. Whether it's the comment they're going to pass, whether it's
it's almost as if you're waiting for it to happen.
Exactly.
So even one small comment, you'll be like, see?
Yeah.
Told you.
My story has been reaffirmed. Yeah. But for you...
Yeah, but for me, everything is so flowery that sometimes it's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
Right? Because everybody is good, everybody is great. You can be not bullied, but like, you're not taken as seriously, you're letting things go past you.
You also take a lot more crap from people.
You're taking a lot more crap, which also makes you resilient, I guess, in some ways.
In some ways, but I think it also makes you resilience. I mean, this whole idea of difficult situations and challenges making you more resilient is true. But the point is that if you keep taking crap from people because you see the good in them, after a point, it eats you up from inside, because without you even being aware of it, you're like, why should I take this? And it's happened to you, right? You reached a point, you're like, I'm not taking this from anyone.
Yeah.
And it usually comes out at me, because apparently...
But I'm not taking, like...
No, it might be so many subtle things, right? You might get a call from someone at home saying, do this for me. And you're like, of course, because you're my family. Or someone else will say, can you do this? whether it's doing or even the way they take it out on you, whether it's the conversation, right? You're always there for people because you're there to see the nice in them. You're kind of be the shoulder they can cry on. But after a point, if you don't look after yourself,
Yeah.
resilience turns into like kind of almost a sense of resentment, going, why am I the person taking this shit? I have my own emotions, my own needs to take care of, and that's happened. So
and I have like been trying, so it's quite hard to kind of pull yourself back and be like, okay, listen, this is for me and I'm doing this for myself because
Yeah.
I need that strength. Like if your cup is not full, how are you supposed to give anybody else? And I'm happy to give everybody and anybody, but the problem is exactly what you said, that you don't prioritize yourself enough.
Yeah.
And then you get depleted after some time.
Yeah. But what I've noticed with me is, while this unnecessary um, need to build stories and kind of anticipate what might happen with what people might say, how they might say it, how I'm going to react, it's just so tiring. While I worked on that to kind of be more towards zero, closer towards neutral, to approach the day, give myself a chance to, okay, I'll let those thoughts come. I'm not going to say I'm avoiding those thoughts, because let those thoughts come, let them go through you, and you, as much as possible, process what you're starting the day with. I think a certain amount of rage helps me get through the day. And again, right, this is,
I beg to disagree.
I think with anyone, right, this is a construct that you approach the world with, whether it's, as you said, I've experienced this kind of life. As a result, I have the right to feel like this, and anyone else who challenges that is wrong. And that's when we clash a lot with people, right? And another thing that happens as a result is that, because your version of the truth or your experiences have been told by popular media or by anyone that it's wrong to be negative, it's wrong to be cynical, it's wrong to be angry. Certain emotions are demonized, certain emotions are glorified. Be happy, be positive, be empathetic. What happens then, I've realized, is that you kind of say your story is not worth experiencing. It's been wrong. You are the person.
You feel that, you mean?
No, a lot of people are told in society, if this is the way you look at life, you are a bad person. You are the person who needs to change. But I feel, as a result, what happens is you kind of live one person for yourself, one version for yourself, and a version for the other person, which is accepted in society. And I think that's also a problem, because I'm just making this point here. No emotion is bad. Anger is fine. Pain is fine. Sadness is fine. As much as being happy, being empathetic. It's just that I feel there is nothing wrong with Mortal Kombat. There's nothing wrong with My Little Ponies.
Yeah.
It's that we need both in our lives.
I feel though, if you live in society, you have to understand what those emotions mean. And that's what people don't understand, right? Like anger, you don't understand how intense that anger can be, because you are living with people. You have to you can't just be angry with the world. So I don't know. Yes, of course, these emotions are required and you have to have these emotions, all of that. But like, to what extent? Because your emotions and what you're feeling will impact somebody close to you, and that will affect them. So you can't have that much control over other people around you, right? Or not control, that's
And
the
that's
wrong
the
word.
biggest thing, right? We can't control other people. And I think that's why the morning routine of spending time with your thoughts, with your emotions, is so important, because that's the only way you can kind of understand how you're facing the day, or the world that the day presents to you, right? That's, if you want to call it, life. Because if you are three sheets to the wind, torn in every direction by everything that anyone else says, then what opportunity do you have to understand what you are feeling? Because you're constantly only in a state of reaction.
Yeah.
Whether it's to your colleagues, whether it's to someone at home. And then what happens as a result is that at the end of the day, you've just got no sense of uh, what you're feeling. Like, what's your foundation then, right? And this is not like a foundation from a young age, which of course contributes to all of this. But it is important to, I think, acknowledge that, oh, it's good to be kind, it's good to be helpful, but it's also good to acknowledge that, why did I get angry? Because that anger did serve me somewhere. It obviously not anger in the typical way of going punching someone in the face because they didn't follow the cue, or it could be anger because you didn't get your promotion, or whatever it may be, right? But there is a reason why anger is still in us. Obviously, excessive anger, just fighting all the time, is not healthy for anyone, because it's just that much energy being drained. That's all you have, and you're tired. Even if that anger is internalized, right? If this person did this to me, the perceived wrong, I'm going to show him next time. Next time someone cuts me off in traffic, I'll show them. It's just tiring, right? Because it's like a balloon which suddenly gets deflated. And I think what I'm trying to get at is that there is a bit of both that's important.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree. But also I feel like sometimes it's not necessary to get angry or feel too much by what other people are doing to you, like if you feel wronged or whatever, because then you're draining your energy from feeling those strong emotions. Like sometimes, does it really make a difference if you're going to get angry at somebody? Like really, what purpose?
No, I think we're sticking too much to anger. I just use that as an example.
Okay,
but
I mean, what else? What other?
There's so many emotions, right? There's so many emotions that we're told.
Or
don't feel.
unhappiness,
It's okay to
like
feel sad.
sadness.
It's okay to
so
feel sad.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
What
it's not.
I'm trying to say is that it's okay to feel all these emotions. Don't get stuck to one. I know it's hard, but this is something that I've tried to do. Like if someone says something, and they actually do say something, but if you've been anticipating it, you hold on to it. Say, see, my story is validated. People are going to be mean to someone who can't see or whatever, right? Because my story told me that's what's going to happen. But if I'm able to spend time with my story, knowing this is where I've come from, it passes through you a lot better. So I'm not giving a solution. What I'm trying to say is how we've established that we know where we've come from is so important, because once you understand the story or the experiences that shape your perspective, you're able to make more sense of things and realize the difference between reality and perception.
I think you're also able to give each other more room.
Yeah.
And you don't react as much to each other, even though we still do react a lot.
But I think the recovery is better, right? We don't hold grudges for as long.
Yeah.
We don't, the intensity, of course, sometimes when we are aware of this, right? When I think a couple of weeks back, we both just lost it and we were just angry. I think about the podcast or something. And you said mean things, really mean things. And I said mean things.
What did I say?
I forget. It was really mean, like you're useless as a father. Something pretty good. Got me pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, wow. And I was like threatening to get a lawyer. It got pretty. It gotten there nice. And this is just over our morning cup of coffee. It wasn't even like 7:30. And I was like, wow, what a start to the day.
And I must have been like, God, why am I even committing to doing this podcast with you? It's just going to be so difficult.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a podcast, but we gotten there good and gotten there early. Like before even the second cup of coffee. And I was like, fuck meditation, right? This is not going to help. And this is the thing, when I come, when we go for therapy or whatever, right? It's always that if something about what went wrong or things are not going smoothly, both sets of eyes look to me, because Mortal Kombat is the cause of problems. Ponies are never looked at as a bad thing.
Ponies are always so like happy.
Yeah, but ponies can throw a kid off and break its neck. No one looks at that side of a pony, right?
Okay, now, no, that doesn't.
But Mortal Kombat, soldiers save your life.
No.
The point is sometimes when you get past that point of being aware, it is natural and normal, and we've had some fights. But what I was really appreciative of, if that's the right word, is that literally 5 minutes after that, I came and said, I think that went out of control. You acknowledged it. We didn't carry it on, which wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have spoken for 3-4 days 5 years back.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say is that I always attribute my anger at the world at my eyesight, but I don't think that's all of it. That's just one of the things which happened early on. So it kind of gave me the sense of loss, the sense of my body's abandoned me, and put me straight away into fight or flight mode, which of course is a contributor. But that's not the only reason why my outlook is the way it is.
Yeah. My pony land has come from my pony land. I think in terms of our upbringing, we've grown up. I grew up in a joint family with my grandmom and aunt and uncle and cousins, and so we were a really big family. So I think there was not too much attention paid to each child, and just kind of grew up on the streets. We lived on like this.
The streets.
No, I mean. So bad. No, I mean that we lived on this little small street with multiple houses that had kids.
Very different from growing up on the streets, just to point it out.
No, that's not what I meant. But anyway, so we used to all like hang out, play together. We went to a school that was close by. So we grew up with people that were similar to us. And
Walked 8 kilometers for a glass of water. I'm joking. But yeah,
but yeah, so like it was fun, it was sweet and special. Like I would run across the street to eat pani puri, like buy a pani puri, for like 2 rupees, 1 rupee, like that. It was so cute, it was so fun and special. And I think also being the youngest in the family, I think I was also maybe a bit spoiled, but I was like, it was fun because we were a big family, and I think that helped shape the upbringing for me.
strangely, mine is a very similar uh, upbringing, right? I'm the youngest amongst all my cousins. My grandmom had my uncle and aunt, cousins all coming over, even though they didn't live with us. I didn't grow up on the streets, but I would be on, you know, uh, I would be on these kind of afternoons playing with the neighbors. I would run around the Janta Bazaar Park where our daughter goes now. I would get these ice lollies. They were not 2 rupees; they were a little more. And it's a very similar thing. But why is it different, right?
Yeah.
I think it's
The
what
people you
happened
look
with.
up to also.
I think it's what those people are and what those people say and how they kind of talk to you. Because I feel I came with a lot of conditional
They call
kind
it
of.
like this mother wound, right?
Could be, right? Because when there is a certain reward for a certain behavior, uh, and there's other things when you observe the other way, the way other people around you interact or talk about other people. I think those things
Yeah.
are more influential than just having these people.
Yeah.
Because the people are great, but what do those people say to you? How do they behave around you? How do they behave to the world around them?
Yeah.
I think that is more
Correct.
influential in
And
shaping.
how they treat themselves and
Yeah.
how they think about themselves. I think that's such a huge part, because it almost as if as children tells you this is how you should be with yourself.
And a funny example is when we spoke about the same topic, right? Like, for instance, something as simple as when you started your company, uh, it was all just, it hadn't even broken even. It was just the idea was so well received, right, by your dad and your mom. Like, wow, Nivi, you're starting Ikibi. And I was just like, what? You're being celebrated for Jack, right? Because in my environment, until you achieve, until you've actually defeated the enemy, you're not celebrated. So I frankly found it like astonishing early days. Like, or someone like your brother would go for a run and everyone's like, wow, you went for a run. And I'm like, but he didn't win a marathon. How can you celebrate marathon? I was just like spluttering with consternation going, but he didn't do anything significant. Because for me, it's like you have to achieve to get validation. You have to achieve to be recognized as worthy.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a big difference, right?
Such a big difference in the way we now are bringing up our child as well. Because I'm like, oh, this poor baby, she's just a child, like letting anything go at this age. And she's 2 and she's throwing tantrums and she's behaving like a 2-year-old. But like very aware and acknowledging what he's doing and feeling. Like, but like sometimes it just happens and he
Knee-jerk,
gets
yeah.
so angry with her. And I'm like, why? What did she do? Like, really, what did she do?
And I feel
to you?
awful immediately. But then I realized it's no excuse, but I've carried this. And this is something which is carried, if you're not aware, generationally.
Yeah.
Because you, especially if you're aware of it, you hear people around you, especially the closest people. It's just kind of a script which you are not in control
Yeah.
of. It just happens.
Yeah.
And once you're aware of it, it doesn't mean you stop right away. But you're like,
Yeah,
that realization.
yeah.
And I'm like, why am I doing this? But it's so deeply ingrained, and then automatically you turn to the most obvious symptom of, oh, because he can't see his anger. No,
Yeah.
it's beyond that. Or because he drinks, he responds. These are all
Yeah.
external kind of indicators, but there's a much deeper reason of why you respond, or how, or why you react to certain people in certain situations, because it is a deeper story which is written sometimes unconsciously as a child in your life, and you live with that story for many years without even knowing
Yeah.
what that story is.
But it's so powerful and beautiful once you know it, that you can change it.
Or you
Like you
can even
can live the life
understand.
that you want to
Yeah,
live. Like
yeah,
you don't have to, if you want to, that is,
correct.
of course. It's so nice.
You can ride a beautiful little pink My Little Pony with a sword in your hand and
Yeah, like.
fight the good fight, sister. Sister, that's wrong. All right, it's getting a bit incestuous. Time to say goodbye.
But I also wanted to say, how pretty is this room?
Yeah,
We're sitting in Sri Lanka at the moment on holiday with his parents and sister and
my niece and my
niece and our
daughter.
daughter, and they've gone
She
for
was on the streets, but we decided to take her in. A big shout out to Briganza House, where we're staying.
It's
And
so pretty, and even though it's super hot in here, and we put off the fan because of sound and all of that, and we're perspiring, but this room, we had to do this episode and a recording in this room because it's so pretty.
yeah, we perspire so you can aspire. All right.
All
Thank you
right.
so much for staying with us on this episode. And of course, do comment with what your story's been. If I'm sure everyone has their own story, but if any of these points resonated with your daily reactions, if you kind of do what I do, or if you do what Nivi does, do join us in the conversation. We'd love to hear from you. And
Which team are you on? Mortal Kombat?
obviously, it's Mortal Kombat.
Oh, My
Yeah.
Little Pony.
Yeah, I'm sure.
My
I'm
was
sure
about
90% of the
fun.
guys would be like, "I want my pony, so I can look so cute. So I can take a yeah." But anyhow, no judgment. Whichever story suits you.
Yeah.
It can be your own story. Why should it suit anyone, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, do stay in touch with us. We look forward to coming back soon on the next episode. And if you have anything you want us to talk about, do drop that in the comment as well. In the comments as well.
Thank you so much, everybody, for listening in. We'd love to hear what you thought of this episode, and excited to
really.
take this conversation on the comments. Thank you.